We have another conversation about nuclear safety at Koeberg in relation to the decision by the National Nuclear Regulator to grant a 20-year lifespan extension, at least, for Koeberg's Unit 1. And Dr. Tristan Taylor, who's a research fellow in environmental ethics at Stellenbosch University, has written in Business Day that part of that decision showed something quite concerning, that Unit 2 is not in great shape. Tristan, a very good morning to you.
Very good morning, and a very good morning to all your listeners.
I haven't picked that aspect of it up. I sort of noted, okay, the extension has been granted. But what did the decision say about Unit 2, which is concerning?
Well, there seems to be degradation in the containment building of Unit 2. There's in both, but it's quite pronounced in Unit 2. And what it essentially means is that the NNR cannot guarantee the safety of Unit 2's containment building. That's the thing you see from outside on the street when you drive past Koeberg. In the case of what they call the worst case scenario, but I mean that is a meltdown or a partial meltdown. So if the reactor blows inside the containment building, that containment building needs to hold its integrity. If it doesn't, then we have a massive release of radiation and complete tragedy. So it's very important. This is one of the most important critical safety things of a nuclear power plant. Because of problems with the containment building and not having enough data, which is actually probably the most important point, having enough data, the NNR is not sure that in a worst case scenario, in 8 years from now, that Unit 2's containment building would maintain integrity. That is why they said, at the moment, we can only license Unit 2 when we get to that license decision next year for another 8 years. So 2033, Unit 2, at the moment, can no longer operate because it is unsafe. Now, the real issue here is that Eskom was telling us, and they've been telling us for over a decade, that Unit 2, both units, were good to go for another 20 years. And now we have this thing. And the way that happened is quite, in my view, quite frightening, is that because there's problems with the monitoring system and other data points within both of the reactors, they're just old, and some of them have stopped functioning. Eskom didn't have enough data about the Unit 2's containment building. So what it did is it took data from Unit 1 and extrapolated it to data 2. And quite correctly, the NNR said that was not scientifically sound. But that is the worrying thing.
Yeah, because the regulator says, and I'm quoting, the safety of the containment building is not fully demonstrated for Unit 2 for the period of long-term operation. That's quite a sort of bland, wishy-washy thing to say. The safety of the containment building is not fully demonstrated, but it goes into further detail, which explains it further.
Yeah, in nuclear speak, that's a terrifying statement. Different industries and things have different ways of speaking.
Yeah.
And in the kind of the engineering thing, if you say, I cannot fully demonstrate the safety of something, that's a huge, huge red flag. And, we must actually give credit to the NNR now for picking this up.
And the decision on Unit 2 is due to be made, as you said, next year. And in the light of the concerns, I mean, if the concerns are such, then why are they prepared to grant an 8-year extension even? Eskom has got a 20-year extension for Unit 1. And if the NNR is concerned about the safety of the containment building at Unit 2, why are they considering an 8-year life extension?
Well, they've done an engineering judgment. They've looked at they've done an engineering analysis of the NNR. They've done a look at it, and they've said, and they've looked at the state of the concrete, and they've run the math. This is what they've done. And they've said, well, it's all going to be within limits for 8 years. After 8 years, it will be out of tolerance. So they've made a forward projection. So they're not saying that it's out of tolerance now. They're saying in 8 years it will be out of tolerance. So that's why they want to give a license decision for 8. Personally, my view is that this LTO should have never been gone for. Koeberg is an old plant. It has actually provided us with electricity with great degree of safety. it's done its job. It's paid itself off. Time to retire it because of the safety concerns.
How fixable are those safety concerns? As you said, the decision on Unit 1 was given in the middle of this year, July the 19th. And so they have, assuming that they would give the decision on the Unit 2's extension at about the same time, that means they've got 10 months to deal with the concerns around the safety of the containment building at Unit 2. I don't know how complicated, simple, technically demanding, near impossible it is to allay the concerns with technical work between now and July next year.
Well, those are very good questions and open, and I can't really give you a definite answer to all of them. My feeling is, though, given what they were saying about the concrete, and I'll bracket this in just a moment, but the concrete said it's not going to be technically feasible if everything that they see is correct. Maybe they do further investigations and they find things aren't as bad as they are. That is a possibility. But, when I was writing the article for Business Day, I was looking at all of this in the NNR documentation and in the Eskom documents that they'd released as part of the LTO project. And then there was a series of correspondence, which I think should actually be in the public domain. It was a series of letters, along with the engineering reports on this containment building, about how Eskom calculated that it was safe, and the NNR went back and it wasn't safe, and then the actual engineering report, the actual report of what was actually going on in that containment thing. What we have now is the NNR summary of everything and some of Eskom's documentation. We don't have the actual analysis of the containment building, and we don't have the record of all the judgment and the discussion between. I asked for this information for both Eskom and NNR, and they didn't release it. And that, for me, is just a red flag about safety for a nuclear power station. This is something which everybody in the country, especially people in the Cape, but everybody in the country, has a very vested interest in making sure that the nuclear plant runs safe. It doesn't matter whether you're the most anti-nuclear opponent on the world or you're, atoms for peace booster. Everyone's interest is aligned here, and that is safe. And when nuclear operators start withholding information, I do get quite worried.
And Tristan, the International Nuclear Regulatory Commission has been involved. It's had inspectors on site, and it came up with a report saying these things need to be fixed in order for Unit 1's extension to be granted. And can I presume that those things were fixed for the South African nuclear regulator to grant the extension of Unit 1? So, is the international body involved in an issue like the safety of the containment building as well?
Yes and no. Okay. It's a bit of a strange point. We are a member of the International Atomic Agency. As a country, we've signed up to various nuclear conventions. And we invite the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, to come down, and they made a report. The view of the regulator and Eskom is that this is essentially advice that they will take on board. My view on that is that it's a little bit more serious than advice. So this is the international expert body from people across the world, and they come down. And they came down and they were quite scathing, actually, of what was going on. Now, the NNR is saying that they've addressed, or Eskom has addressed all the concerns. Eskom is saying it. Whether they have or not, that's a bit of more of an open question. But yeah, the the IAEA was quite scathing of the plant, actually, in, again, diplomatic language. Have they done anything? That, I think, is a bit of a question, and I'm doing some more research onto that as we speak.
Okay, we'll wait for the next article in Business Day or wherever else it appears. Thank you very much to Dr. Tristan Taylor, a research fellow in environmental ethics.